everyone, it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be making these two cards using Turnabout stamp sets, one large and one small. Well, I don't actually end up using these dies that I'm showing you right now, but I do use the Postmarked Turnabout stamp set that you see here, the guide that comes with it, as well as the jig that you can buy separately. There's a large jig and a small jig, and I'm going to show you how you can use it all together in whatever stamp platform you have. We're going to use 3 colors of Concord and 9th ink, Versamark, and some Recollections embossing powder and some cardstock. The first thing you're going to want to do is put your jig into your stamping platform, whichever one you choose. Then you're going to take your stamp off, and you're also going to get the guide. You're going to put the guide down and then line your stamp up to the best of your ability right over top of the guide. You want to make sure that it gets as close as possible because that's how you're going to get these stamped images to look good together but not overlap. So once you have them on fairly well, then you're going to line up that X on the guide with the X on the jig. You can see my head over in there because I was making sure that I was getting right over top of it. Now you're going to take your guide off, place it to the side, and you don't want to lose that. I've already put some repositionable tape on the back of a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch cardstock. This happens to be light pink, and then we're going to ink up our stamp for the first turn. So this is Concord and 9th sorbet ink. Inking everything up, and this is the first time I'm using this stamp set and pretty much the first time I'm using a lot of this Concord and 9th ink. It kind of gets everywhere, so I'm not really thrilled with it. There are other ink pads that I like better, but I went ahead and bought the whole line on Black Friday, and I do like the colors. I'm just not sure that it cleans up very easily, as you can see here. I have to work with it a little more. So you're going to see after I clean off my stamp, I take that jig, place it back in the corner, and rotate it. Now there are numbers at the top of every corner, and I'm using my bar magnet to hold everything into place. And I was just making sure that the position was actually turned and that when I stamp it, I'm not stamping on top of something else. So now we're going to use the Honeysuckle ink to do the same thing. Now I may have been pressing too hard with the sorbet ink at first because this one doesn't seem to get on this stamp as much on the actual indented parts of it. But I'm stamping this and inking it up, and it stamps pretty well the first time. So that is a good mark for the Concord and 9th ink. They do seem to stamp really well. So I just missed one little area because it is a big stamp, so now I'm just using my arm to rub over top of it to make sure everything stamps well. Cleaning it off, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the 3rd color ink, which I believe is Cranberry. So I'm going to take the top, rotate it, make sure that that number 3, I believe it's 3, it's at the top. It doesn't matter which side you start on. You can start on whichever one you want. Just make sure that you keep rotating so that you have a different number over top of it. And it's easy to figure out because if you don't, you will actually stamp right on top of the layer that you did before. If you did the turn the wrong way, you're actually going to see before you put it down that you're going to be stamping in that spot. You should be stamping into open spaces. Now, this is where I went wrong. I want to use Versamark ink, but what I should have done was dried this first. My problem is it says don't heat anything, don't use a heat gun on top of the jig because the jig is plastic. So I didn't want to take it off and risk not putting it back in the first place. I should have put this aside to dry, worked on my other one, but no, I'm super impatient and I can't do that. So you'll see the big mistake that I make once I put the embossing powder on. So I'm going to clean my stamp off for the last time, ink it, and there was a little bit of, this is what I was doing. I was actually kind of getting the static off of there using the Norwex cloth. I smudged the ink a little bit. I probably should have used a clean one, but again, do as I say, not as I do. I'm telling you I'm showing you all the things you could possibly do wrong just for your benefit. So I inked it up in Versamark ink, stamped it down, and you can see there's a little bit of red that was still on there. I didn't clean it off perfectly, but that's fine because the gold embossing powder is going to cover that. You're not even going to be able to see it. I'm cleaning off the sides of the jig so that so that the ink doesn't stain it. It will stain it, but that's okay. So now you see I'm taking this gold Recollections embossing powder and laying it over top of the whole card. again, where I go wrong. I should have just tried to do it in the areas that I use the Versamark, but I couldn't really tell. So you see like some of the red and the pink pieces, they got some gold on it. Now I don't mind because in the end it kind of looks cool. I do try to get it off some of the areas. Some of it I leave on. You know, it's handmade. It's never going to be perfect. But like that area where I'm wiping off with a brush now, that was entirely covered with it. So I'm just going back to try to find areas where I can take it off. I actually take it off of a place that I wasn't supposed to, that was actually supposed to be embossed. So I do have to go put more embossing powder on it. But again, I was doing this and I did it the wrong way. I should have let it dry or heat set it or done something like that. So now you're actually going to see me heat setting it. I did put my turn my heat gun on before I went to the paper, gave it 30 seconds or so to heat up, and you can see that embossing powder turning. That's one of my absolute favorite things, is to watch that embossing powder melt. It's one of the most the cool things about it. Now I heated it from the front and then I also heat it from the back to try to minimize the warping. So you will see like that 5 cents there in red. You'll see there's a little bit of gold on there. It is what it is. I think it gave it a little something. So now I found this love die that was sitting in my pile of things that I made and haven't used. So I couldn't find all of the interior pieces, but I wanted to put it on the front. It's from a Concord and Ninth die. I will put that information down in the more information section because I can't exactly remember what die it is right now. But I thought that looked really cool on the front. I didn't want everything to show through, so actually 2 of the letters, it's the O and the E, I believe, that I go ahead and, or maybe the V. I go ahead and pop the interior pieces in, and they just happen to be the same color red and the same color pink that I used, the red for my card base and the pink for my background. So it's actually going to be kind of cool because it looks almost like I didn't stamp in those areas. And I'm using my Honeybee precision glue to put little bits of glue on the back of the love word. So there, I'm placing it on the front, kind of centering it up, and you can see the stamping through. It would look so good like this, but I'm actually going to go ahead, it's the O and the V. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and pop all those pieces back into place. I'm going to use, again, my precision glue to put glue on the back of the letters and then pop them in. So I think that it looks really neat like that. I was going to use the Sending Happy Mail, but I'm part of a card swap group and it was a Love is in the Air card. So I picked this one to put in there. So that was the one. Actually, I did both. I sent both of these cards. For the swap, you send 2 cards, one with the theme, and then the other one can be any theme. So that's the first card with the large Turnabout stamp set. So now let's work on the smaller one. And this is the Gem Turnabout stamp set. So there's a smaller jig associated with this, and there's the gem die, and you see the jig. And I'm going to use 4 colors of Concord and Ninth ink for this one with, I thought I was going to use some Versamark. I can't remember. We'll see if I do. So I'm going to do the same thing that we did before, the smaller jig, place that down, put the guide over top, place the stamp down, and it shows you this side up so you can tell which side is the right side to keep the jig up, because it does matter. I'm sorry, the guide up. It does matter what side you put the guide on. The guide has to be on the proper way so that you can make sure that you stamp properly. So I originally started off with a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch paper. I actually cut it down to, I believe, 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, and I center it up in the middle of this jig once we get the stamp onto the MISTI. And we'll actually center that up in there. So I just, kind of keep it as even of a border on all 4 sides as I possibly can. Use my bar magnet again, and we're going to use Grapefruit Concord and Ninth ink. Ink this up. This is where I didn't really love the images being stamped in this Concord, and I don't know if maybe I pressed too hard. I don't know. You guys tell me, what do you think? I wasn't really crazy about the way some of these ones stamped, so you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. See, kind of the solid ones, I wasn't really crazy about the way they stamped. I don't know if it was too harsh or they kind of like blobbed together, so I probably did push too hard. It's probably a user error, probably has nothing to do with the inks. But if you look at it, and I believe this is Oceanside, I'll list all of the, or sorry, Sea Glass. I'm going to list all of the inks below in the more information section too, so don't worry about it. So you can see that those jewels line up with the sparkle marks. So as you go around and do all 4 turns, it actually creates the pattern, it completes the pattern. So, and again, I think I pressed too hard for that little one kind of in the middle, that real solid one. It didn't really turn out. It's not my favorite one. Now we're using Ballet slippers, which I have to write them about that because you see that big white spot in there? I don't think it's supposed to be like that. None of the other inks are like that, even some of the other light ones. So there's the Ballet ink, and then I ink that up twice, and then we're going to, again, rotate. Make sure that you rotate. You can't see the numbers on this one, but it is really easy to tell if you've done, you know, all 4 stamping, because some of the images like that, the burst on the side, those rays that go up, obviously you need a diamond underneath that to complete that pattern. So we inked it up with one of the turquoise. I think this is Oceanside. I think I used Sea Glass and then Oceanside. And you can see that the pattern is complete now that we've done it, and none of these overlap, which is the coolest thing. So you've created this real nice pattern paper with no overlap. So now, for that last one, I do decide to use the Versamark ink, and we are going to use some holographic powder on this, so embossing powder. Now, I don't think I stamped it exactly perfectly. I think the paper moved a little bit, but it actually looks good in the end. So I'm going to use my catch-all paper, and we're going to sprinkle this, this holographic embossing powder from Ranger over top of it. And I do believe that the other images were dry when I went ahead and did this, so you didn't get the holographic embossing powder over everything like I did in the other one. But we're going to do the same exact thing, flick off the excess, put it back into the container so I don't spill it, put the lid back on because, you know, me and these kind of things, I get them all over the place. Put the lid on, place it to the side. We're going to let the heat gun heat up for about 30 seconds before we bring it over, and then you're going to be able to watch the magic on that blue. Sorry about the lighting. I think when I bring my hands in, you'll be able to see it a little bit better, and I apologize, I hit the table. So you'll see the embossing. No, you can't really see it, so I apologize. It's that terrible light. I don't know how to fix that light. My overhead lights are just terrible. So there you go. So there is everything. So that's all heat embossed, and then we're going to get ready to do the embellishment. So this jewel is from the Gems die set. I cut it out of just some white cardstock, both pieces, the outline piece and the solid piece. I'm using my honeybee glue to put it down, and then we are going to use some Nuvo glitter or Nuvo drops. This was just the regular translucent ones. I don't remember the color of it. Again, I'll put it in the more information section. So I went ahead and colored that in because I thought that was a little bit plain after I had glued it down. And then after I put all the Nuvo drops on there, I actually went back and sprinkled some of the holographic embossing powder on top of it and heat set that. Now this part, sorry, I forgot about this. I'm using my corner chomper from We Are Memory Keepers. I believe that's where it's from. And on the 1/4 inch side on a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 piece of paper. So I do believe the white paper is actually 4 by 4. And then I cut the cardstock down to the card base to be 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. Now you see me using the Nuvo drops, so sorry, I kind of jumped ahead. Now I'm going to go back to this. So I did use the Nuvo drops to color in the pieces of the jewel, and I wasn't really crazy about the way it was coming out. It wasn't actually kind of flat. So that's why I decided to go in with the holographic powder. I've never done this before with Nuvo, so I didn't know how it was going to come out. It kind of looked like, almost like a pile of snow at first, but I do like the way it came out, so you'll actually see it in the pictures. So those are the 2 cards. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below, and I'll see you again in another video.